Hello, people from YouTube. I'm Felipe, a Brazilian engineer living in China, and I have this YouTube channel mostly in Portuguese. But my friend asked me to do a video in English, especially because of this guy. I don't know who he is. As far as I know, he was living in China for a while, doing whatever. I don't really know. I know he has a big YouTube channel, over 1 million subscribers, and he says a lot of shit and nonsense about China. So let's have some fun.
You're really going to want to see here because it concerns you.
What concerns
Why
me?
is the Western world so damn stupid when it comes to dealing with China? Why is it that we allow them to get away with what they get away with?
Like what?
Okay, I've recently been watching a lot of what's been flying around with regards to Australia specifically.
It's not about China. I don't really know if he's Australian or not. I cannot get this accent. So Australia, China.
As you may know, Australia has now signed a deal. They're going to be getting nuclear submarines because they need nuclear submarines because of the threat from China in the region. Let's be honest, China's been ramping up this massive navy. They're building these false islands. They're doing all this kind of stuff.
See how he does. Just throw information like China is building up a navy, building islands, of course, is a threat to Australia. When was the last time China threatened Australia? Actually, it's quite the opposite, because Australia sent some navy to the South China Sea. And China doesn't send anything to Australia. So that's what these people do. It's the same modus operandi in Portuguese, the Brazilian guys. They throw a lot of information that has no connection at all.
They're very aggressive, and especially their rhetoric is very aggressive. They've been very aggressive towards Australia as far as trade policies are concerned. And in general, they like to do a lot of trumpeting and chest thumping and all that kind of stuff. Now,
when China was aggressive towards Australia, this has...
I'm sure you've seen the clip of Victor Gao, who is the vice president of the Center for China and Globalization and a chair professor for Suzhou University, as well as being a former translator for Deng Xiaoping, the previous chairman of one of the previous chairmen of mainland China.
Australia itself will be a target for possible nuclear attacks in the future.
Can I just stop you there? Can I just stop you there, Victor? Australia will be a target for nuclear attack from whom?
You do not need to know whom it will be, but as a logic, no one wants to target any nuclear-free zone, which now includes Australia.
Australia has said it will not be carrying nuclear weapons. These are nuclear-powered submarines, as indeed China has. But we're not talking about nuclear weapons. So how is it a target?
Listen, do you really believe you can trust what Washington or even what London say? I would say the watershed moment will be if Australia is armed with nuclear submarines to be locally produced in Australia. Australia will lose that privilege of not being targeted with nuclear weapons by other countries, and that should be the wake-up call for the Australians, the 23 million Australians. Do you really want to be a target in a possible nuclear war, or you want to be free from nuclear menace going forward?
Surely that's...
This guy doesn't work for the government. He's just talking. Also, as you can see, this other guy, Serpentza, he cut it part of the video, so we don't know how this conversation started. So this Chinese is not threatening Australia. He's arguing why Australia needs nuclear weapons, and if Australia has nuclear weapons, could it be a problem for Australia in the future, but not China is threatening. There is, I don't know how many countries in the world who possess nuclear weapons, like Russia and the United States. The United States has over 6,000 warheads. So,
Really, that's unacceptable for someone representing China to say something like that. Why is it that we always let China get away with this kind of stuff and we just stand back and say, oh, it's just China, we better be careful? Well, there's a lot more that's been going on for a very long time, and I've got something to show you, which it's about time everybody took notice of what's being said and what people are being told within mainland China. You see, here in the West, we have this big debate all the time about how we should talk about certain things. We don't want to talk about China in an aggressive way. We don't want to...
You literally have the president of the United States threatening China for years. Biden doesn't do that often, but Trump did it all the time. And actually, this week, Biden is adding more sanctions against China, forbidding companies to work with China on microchips. And Nancy Pelosi was in Taiwan. Even though the United States recognized Taiwan as part of China, she was here defending democracy, but actually she was doing business with chip companies with her son. So it's the opposite. It's not China threatening anyone.
We don't want to treat them as an enemy or a threat. We don't want to put those words out there because we're concerned that it might hurt the feelings of China. We're concerned that it might be perceived as being racist.
Who does that?
We're concerned that it might ramp up, tensions and potentially escalate things and lead to some kind of a conflict.
It's good that we've had this debate, but we have to make sure that we conduct a debate in a way that doesn't arouse fear and anger and anxiety amongst the Australian people, because if we do that, it puts us on a path which leads more directly to all of the horrible things that we've been discussing today.
This is us.
Again, he just had a cut of a video with no context at all. We don't really know what they're talking about. Just a guy saying worrying things about whatever. Could it be COVID? Could it be, I don't know. Because remember, Australia also invaded Afghanistan or Iraq. I don't remember, maybe both. But then it's okay. And again, there's no connections on those videos. We don't really know what these people are talking about.
This is the Western developed world, the democracies of the world. This is us.
And you see that he's talking about the West, the Western West, the West. Australia is not the West on the geography position of the globe. But he treats Australia as West. I'm Brazilian. We are not treated as West. We're not even treated as white. Even though you look at me, I'm from Italian heritage that immigrated to Brazil, but we are not treated as white in the United States, in Australia or Europe. I'm treated as Latino and all the prejudice and stereotypes that comes with it. When he says West, it's basically white countries because Australia is not in the West.
The way we deal with people diplomatically, this is us being nice. This is us saying we have to be careful. And we have these big debates with each other, and we've got people who are completely for China, we've got people that are completely against China, we've got people somewhere in the middle. But the fact of the matter is we still debate about how we should talk about things because we don't want to say things that sound overly aggressive. We don't want to say things that sound like warmongering. So for instance, if we talk about protecting ourselves from a potential invasion by China or protecting Taiwan from a potential invasion from China, it's seen as warmongering or fear-mongering.
Yes, it is, because I don't know where you're from, but you're not from Taiwan. And you're not from China. Why you have to defend Taiwan when 170, 180 countries in the world, they recognize Taiwan as part of China? So China cannot really invade its own province. And I'm not defending China. That's how the international community think about this matter. Why you will defend Taiwan? And I don't really think you ever hold a gun to defend Taiwan anyway. You just do your shit on your YouTube channel. But the whole point is China will not invade Australia. And you are the one saying China is creating this warmonger rhetoric and saying bullshit. Like, Jesus Christ.
Mongering. And it's controversial for some reason to even mention these things. However,
because it's
in
stupid.
mainland China, they are blustering and constantly calling for war, constantly talking about how they're going to invade Taiwan, constantly talking about how America and the West is their enemy. I'm going to show you some real-life stuff so that you can see that while you're worried about your words being misconstrued as perhaps a little bit too aggressive or perhaps something that might escalate a situation or something, China already is full blast escalating, speaking aggressively, and they're doing it to every single citizen of China. So everyone's familiar with news pop-ups, right? You're using a phone and a notification will come up if you're subscribed to different news services. It just pops up and tells you what the
random video of a Chinese or Asian woman.
latest headline news is, for instance. And It's usually something political or to do with the stock market or to do with whatever. You know the deal. You know what pops up on your phone in China? Articles about attacking the West and how bad America is, or how bad the West is and how much of an enemy they are. That's what. We're going to look at a couple of these. Now, I got tipped off to this. Obviously, when I was living in China, I would get the...
I don't read Chinese, but again, he's just posting random stuff in Chinese, and if you cannot read Chinese like me, you just need to believe he's telling the truth. And actually, what happens is almost every week, ship from the United States or an airplane from the United States Army invades China airspace or is here in the South China Sea. Because they have 30,000 soldiers in South Korea. South Korea is basically a colony of the United States, and they have a navy around here. Why they have navy here? This is not part of the US. So that's why China keeps saying, look, we need to be careful. Because the warmonger states of the United States, Australia, even Canada was here 2 weeks ago. They are here all the time. What do you expect China to do?
I would get these kind of weird pop-ups on my phone the whole time. But I've got a friend that lives in China, and the reason why he alerted me to this is he is a foreigner, okay? Now, this is important because as a foreigner, he's not interested in following the Chinese news in Chinese. He's not interested in following anything to do with that, but he kept getting these pop-ups on his phone. And this is important because he's not particularly following any particular news trend or anything like that. He's, using his phone for his everyday stuff. So this stuff just kept popping up uninvited on his phone.
I live in China and they have no pop-ups like that. So that's how stupid this argument is. Because he's saying, oh, my friend received those pop-ups. Okay, there's 1.4 billion people in China. I'm in China right now and I don't receive those pop-ups. So I'm saying you're lying. See how stupid is the argument, because I cannot talk for the 1.4 billion people as you cannot as well.
I took a look at some of these and they are pretty appalling, the things that are being broadcast around and popping up on people's phones all around China. Of course, I confirmed with multiple Chinese friends, and of course the same stuff is popping up on their phones.
Of course you did.
Mostly just seen as, news,
Trust, bro.
up, things like that. But if you look at the wording...
What's his source? Trust, bro.
Okay, and if you look at what's being pushed to people's phones all around China, you'd be quite shocked. It's awful. It's warmongering. It's aggressive. It's anti-foreign. It's xenophobic. It's racist. It's some terrible stuff that's being pushed to people's phones. And the problem is that the majority of people trust...
Based on your accent, I would guess you know something about racism and xenophobic. All this discourse is racist, basically.
This news. They trust these pop-ups that come up on their computers, come up on their phones all the time. Because in China, you trust the state-run media. You have no choice. That is your only source of information. You read the Chinese news. You get your news through Chinese outlets, and you cannot get your news from anywhere else because it's blocked. It's banned. So imagine...
This is very stupid. And he's distorting things, because I work with Chinese and none of them, and I talk about politics all the time with them, none of them wants a war. None of them. We were talking about Russian war and all this idea that China should help Ukraine or should help Russia. Every Chinese I talk with, and I already talked with people who work for the Communist Party, they says we should not do anything besides diplomacy. Try to find a diplomatic exit of all this situation. That's what they say. I never heard from any Chinese saying we should send weapons to Ukraine, soldiers to Russia, whatever. I never heard that. Again, doesn't mean I am speaking for 1.4 billion people, no. But that's the stupid argument this guy is using.
Imagine your average everyday grandpa or your average everyday uncle or any kind of a person sitting down there drinking his tea, doing his thing, and something pops up on his phone saying how bad America is and how aggressive they are towards China.
But that's what the United States do against Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, and China, and Russia, and whoever is the enemy, Vietnam, North Korea, all those bullshit that let's talk about a little bit about North Korea. All this bullshit that you hear about North Korea, you cannot cut the hair, it has to be the same haircut as Kim Jong-un, and you cannot laugh, you cannot wear jeans. All this is created by the United States or South Korea. All this bullshit. There's even a documentary about two guys, I think from Australia. They go to North Korea just to get a haircut the way they want, and they ask for it. So that's how stupid it is. And the United States do exactly what this guy is saying for hundreds of years.
Towards China and how we have to prepare to fight against them. He's going to read that and he's going to absorb that and he's going to take that as gospel, right? And this is what's happening. China is preparing its populace for a war, and if not a war, preparing its populace to shun the rest of the world, block everything out, and be completely China-centric.
Really,
so
yes.
Let's go through some of these pop-ups. I'm going to translate them one by one. I've got a number of them from different sources. And we're going to see exactly what everybody in mainland China is being pushed to their phones.
Everybody.
Okay, let's just quickly snap through these. We got a lot of this coronavirus nonsense where they blame the US. This one says, has the case been solved? Evidence points to the fact that America had a vaccine since the year 2000 already, a coronavirus vaccine. It must have come from the US.
Source is wrote browser. How, where this is coming from? And again, how the coronavirus is warmongering.
This one's just mocking America's withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Everybody else does.
Even if you went back with all your soldiers, it wouldn't help. America is going to export...
Again, how this is warmongering? Because the United States went to Afghanistan, destroyed the country, left, and people are selling kidneys to survive. Literally selling kidneys to survive. So that's not mocking. They're just telling the truth.
Export B-21 bombers to fight against China and Russia. With great strength, the situation escalated when the Chinese Coast Guard rammed the Japanese patrol ship near the Diaoyu Islands, which, the Senkaku Islands, when apparently Japan launched unprovoked provocations against China.
Is that different from what Fox News does against China?
This starts with a saying, cut iron like mud, which basically means overkill. And it says, the American army uses this missile to murder people to avenge the deaths of the soldiers killed at the Kabul airport.
United States throw around, I don't know if throw is the correct word, but around 46 missiles per day in some random country around the world. This is the average. Could it be Syria, could it be Iraq, could it be Afghanistan, whatever. That's the average per day. United States dropped more bombs in Laos than the whole World War II, and Laos never did anything against the United States. United States destroyed the whole North Korea for no reason at all. North Korea never did anything against the United States. But China, because of pop-up, is the warmongering.
Report in an explosion. This one says that America has come to beg China for help, and that the US Secretary of State apparently hopes that China will play an important role in Afghanistan.
They literally did that. How this is warmongering?
This one's another coronavirus origin found article, which points again to America. Now, I know...
Wait, because there's no America on this. I cannot read Chinese fluently, but there is no Megua here. There's no America on this.
Coronavirus origin found article, which points again to America. Now, I know some of you out there are probably saying, yeah, America's got tabloids and weird alt-right websites and weird leftist websites and so on that put out absolute crap there as well. But in China, it's all state-controlled. Even the tabloid newspapers, they have to first pass the censorship board. They have to be approved.
When Russia invaded Ukraine, the White House brought a lot of influencers from Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook to brief them about what they should say. So the United States does literally what you were talking about. The United States work with all those big companies, the big tech companies. But then it's fine, right? It's for freedom and democracy.
Approved by the government. So everything that gets sent in these pop-ups, every article you read is approved by the government and sanctioned by the government.
No, it's not.
I mean, this one says America finally surrendered and Russia applaud China on its bold move. Biggest hidden traitor in the United States exposed, and it's that same big traitor. America acquiesces and approves the Chinese vaccine. The arrogant new ideas to fight against the Chinese military. The US commander claimed that the US F-35B will be able to board Japanese aircraft carriers. There's a lot of warmongering, there's a lot of nonsense talked about here, mocking America, mocking Australia.
And everybody mocks America. Everybody mocks the United States. You don't, because you are from a white people's country. I would guess you are from Australia, as you're talking so much about Australia. So that's how the world works. We mock all you guys.
You get the idea. Now just imagine for a minute, you in Australia, you in New Zealand, you in Europe, in Sweden, in wherever, in India, you in America, you in Canada. Imagine you were getting things pushed to your phone, except the exact same thing, except they were painting China as the enemy.
You don't need to imagine, this happens. This happens. The United States was trying to push for a bill of $500 million just to spread bad news about China. That's the main reason. Just to spread bad news. The United States put money on the protests in Hong Kong. United States is sponsoring the separatist movement in Xinjiang. United States pays the Dalai Lama family since the 60s and also sponsored all the separatist movement in Tibet since the 60s. How this is worse than pop-ups? And just answer one question. When was the last time China bombed or invaded another country?
Or they were painting a specific country as the enemy. Would that not be a problem?
No.
Would there not be certain groups of people who would be offended by that? Say, for instance, the Chinese diaspora. Would there not perhaps be a lot of outrage? Why?
No, because they literally did that and they invaded again Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, all the Middle East, and nothing happened because it's white country, rich country, and they can do whatever they want. You can't be that stupid. Or maybe you can.
Why are we always tiptoeing around, worried about hurting the feelings of China and the CCP? They're certainly not worried about hurting the feelings of America or Europe or any other foreign country. In fact, they...
Only the colonizers, because you don't see anything about China in Brazil, for example, China in Venezuela, or China in Argentina, or China in Cambodia, or an African country. You don't see that. You are only mentioning colonizers.
They openly discriminate and show hatred towards the outside world.
No. Not outside world. It's only United States there. Only the colonizers. And there's no such thing as racism against white people.
Why are we debating and discussing and tiptoeing around how we should talk about China? It seems as if everyone is afraid of coming across as too aggressive and that they may start some sort of conflict. Yet China doesn't care about speaking aggressively and actively encourages its news outlets and citizens to prepare for war and to propagate hatred, distrust, and malice towards America, the rest of the world, and to prepare for war. Should we not...
As I said, when you have the US Navy every week on the South China Sea or on the Yellow Sea or wherever around China, they should not prepare for war? Imagine it, for 1 second, imagine the opposite. China send its Navy to Gulf of Mexico or California or Florida. For 1 second, think about it. If China send a politician to Hawaii or Puerto Rico to help on the separatist movements because Hawaii voted to not be annexed to the United States. 95% of the people in Hawaii said we don't want to be United States. And it didn't matter at all. The United States invaded. Puerto Rico, they invaded. Why they hate so much Cuba? Because the Cubans kicked their asses. But Guam and I don't know how many other places around the world, the United States just invaded. So imagine if China goes, send a politician to those places. No, we support democracy in Puerto Rico and Hawaii. Imagine how the United States would react.
Should we not maybe be doing the same? I don't want to be a warmonger or a fear-monger or anything like that. But if my neighbor...
I don't, but... And if you're from Australia, you literally invaded the Middle East. I don't remember anyone from Middle East attacking Australia.
Is constantly talking about how he's going to attack me and how bad I am and how they're going to defeat me in a single blow and all this kind of crap. Surely I should be preparing in the same fashion, at least.
And again, considering you are from Australia, all the natives should treat you the same way, right? Because you just basically committed genocide against the natives in Australia.
Preparing a good defense, preparing myself when this belligerent, terrible neighbor of mine decides he's going to strike? Or should I just be tiptoeing around saying, oh, I've got this crazy neighbor and I really shouldn't even mention his name. I should avoid coming home when he's home because I don't want to make him angry. Because
the guy has a YouTube channel with over 1 million subscribers. Basically about China. It means he makes a lot of money basically talking about China. And he says, oh, I cannot say the name of my neighbor.
that's what the rest of the world is doing right now. We are allowing China to bluster and prepare for war and build up its military and its navy and take advantage of the rest of the world.
See the colonizer mindset? We are allowing China. That's the colonizer mindset. You're just a white, racist, xenophobic man. You have to allow nothing. That's the whole point of this video and his YouTube channel. You have to allow nothing. You're just a white colonizer.
To the world, while we're too kind and too nice, we care about their feelings too much. We're too compassionate towards China.
Sure.
Because they have no compassion towards the rest of the world. In China, with the CCP China.
That's why you spent 14 years in China, as you said on your other video. He has a video, how I survived 14 years in China. Imagine if it was this bad, how much money he was making in China to stay here 14 years.
It's all about CCP, CCP, and CCP. The Chinese people, they don't even care about them. Only if they serve the CCP. One proof of that, just see when any Chinese citizen decides to speak out against the CCP.
That's a bullshit. That's a bullshit. As I said, I work with Chinese and we talk about politics quite often. And they say whatever they want. They are against the policy, the zero COVID policy. Not all of them, but some are, and they are outspoken. I talked with people who are members of the Communist Party, and they criticize what's happening in China, because China is not helping Russia, because China is not helping Ukraine. This literally happens.
Or decides to go his own way, you'll see very quickly what happens to that person. If you toe the party line,
nothing.
And if you're in line with what the CCP wants, sure, they'll allow you to have your moderate prosperity. They'll allow you to continue on with your existence. But step out of line, that's it. CCP is not a nice group of people. There's nothing positive about them.
Sure.
A lot positive about the Chinese people, mind, but not the Chinese government. So, now you know what everyone in China is reading on their phones on a daily basis, the kind of crap that's being pushed to them. Don't feel too upset the next time someone treats the Communist Party of China as some kind of a threat. Perhaps talks about them being a threat. Don't be...
First, the Communist Party of China has 96, 97 million members. China has 1.4 billion people. So even if you criticize the Communist Party of China, you're not generalizing and saying the whole population is like that. So it's okay, you can criticize the Communist Party. Your problem is, first, you are treating Chinese people as just dumb, stupid cows that follow the party blindly, which is not true. Harvard did a research in China, and actually China proves the government in 95%. It was Harvard from the United States. There's no connection with the Chinese government. The Chinese government, the Communist Party, lifted over 800 million people from extreme poverty. And this number comes from the World Bank, or FMI. I'm not sure now. So this is not a good thing. 12% of the population of the United States today doesn't have the 3 meals per day. This doesn't happen in China. And again, those numbers are from institutions from Europe and the United States. And this is a bad thing.
Don't be that person who's like, oh, don't say that. You might be a little too aggressive, that you might hurt their feelings. Because they don't care about your feelings. They don't care about our feelings.
They don't care about your feelings because you are no one. You are no one. Like me, we are no one. That's why they don't care about your feelings. But based on your videos and your YouTube channel, the Chinese did really hurt you, right? They really hurt your heart. Because after 14 years working here, you still have all this hatred inside you. That's very sad. Maybe you should hug a Chinese.